Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central, and I'm here today with Gustav Hoegen, who did the incredible work of the movie Hatching. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm in a hotel room in Pisa, Italy right now.
Ooh.
Just finished a job for university. I did a humanoid robot there, and I had to do some maintenance, as you do, because they run for a long time, for years and years, and now and again they call you up and say, "Oh, we got a little issue." So I literally flew over to replace a tiny part, and then I'm flying back tomorrow. So it's all right.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool. So I'm curious, how did you get started in this world of like animatronics and graphic, like all of this design stuff? Because you've worked on some incredible films. So how did you kind of get interested in this world?
Oh God, since I was 6 years old, I still remember it to this day. My dad took me to a theater called Tuschinski Theater in Amsterdam, which is a beautiful Art Deco cinema. It's literally like a listed building. It's the most beautiful cinema ever. And went to see Return of the Jedi, and my dad still remembers that I was like open mouth throughout the whole movie, and it sort of lit a spark. And I wanted to see everything that had creature effects, special effects, you name it. So the other obvious films came along, like Alien. Big fan of RoboCop. I know it's a dubious one, but I think that ranks as one of my favorites. It's got everything, hardware, beautiful prosthetics, etc. So I was obsessed with each of those individual films, and I would watch them over and over, study the special effects of like how do they do this, and it was my mind was pretty much set from then on that I wanted to do it. And then another, you have these moments in your life that sort of stick out. And I was in Portugal, and there was a Van Gogh magazine. I was like, oh, what's that? I need to get that magazine. And literally, the pages were just falling off. It was like just a pile of paper. After a few months, I read it that much, so I started reading the magazines, and I had such an insatiable in or curiosity in how they would make things. Like, how do they make that skin? How do they make that move? So it was pretty much a given that I was going to do this. So, but growing up in Holland, there is no industry. There is film industry, but not like you have, say, in Hollywood or in UK, where I ended up moving to on the advice of a Canadian producer who said, well, if your son wants to do this, he should try England. So I left Holland when I was 19, and that's the beauty of youth. You have no inhibitions, you just go for it. And I started briefly just to get to know the country, and then started knocking on doors and do the most menial jobs, as in sweeping floors, sanding things, just really work yourself up from the bottom. And I was just so happy to be part of that industry, and also hearing what was happening in the UK, what big massive productions they do, because I always was under the impression that Star Wars, Alien, all those came from America, but it turns out they're all filmed in London. So that's pretty much how my career started, and the rest is history.
That's so cool to like want to do that since you were a kid and actually
Yeah,
like
yeah.
follow through. That's so incredible that you were able to do that. And so, what are some of your favorite creations you've made?
Favorite creations.
It's probably trying picking a favorite kid, but I'm curious.
It is that's there's a lot of factors involved. How much did I enjoy the process of being in a certain team, etc. How did I enjoy being on set? I think one of my favorites still, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Hell yeah.
just because it was for Henson's. We built the Vogons, and when every element of it is just beautifully executed. That I don't know. I stepped into Henson's, and I was like, oh man, I'm at home. It was some of the happiest period of my life. Just building beautiful animatronic heads, beautifully engineered. They move beautifully, and then you go and visit the costume department where they make these beautiful fake leather coats. Just everything was just a joy to behold, and just being in such an iconic company as Jim Henson's Creature Show. So that ranks as one of my favorite experiences. I would say Prometheus was a very mixed one, because it was obviously a childhood. Again, I was cloud nine, but then reality sets in, and you realize that you actually have to build something that has to look realistic and that can actually film on. And being still a bit younger and naive, I thought the weight of the world was on my shoulders. Knowing this, as I progress now, I know it's not the end of the world. But to me, it was. I said these things have to be perfect, and I put
Yeah.
so much pressure on me. But I'm happy with the results, so I classify those as one of my favorite. Not so much because of the experience, which was anxiety riddled for me. I was nervous all the time, so it wasn't healthy in that respect. But as a result, that ranks as one. And there's so many, and I say Ali as well, because that was done in my own little studio, my own company, through from start to end, and everything was done under my roof. So that was very special, down to going to Latvia and shoot it. So yeah, it has a special place in my heart, definitely, that film. And also how it went on set. We had a real bonding with the puppeteering team. It was lovely people. The Latvian crew was great. The Finnish people were great. It was just a joy, and it couldn't have gone better. I think the whole shoot. We had 7 days. They booked just for us, just to put more pressure on me. So basically, I flew to Latvia, and I was like, right, these people literally booked a studio with all the crew for 7 days just for us. Obviously, not the whole film was done there, but they allocated those days to shoot Ali. So again, the weight of the world was on my shoulders, but thanks to an amazing puppeteering team, they pulled through so well. And
Well, that's incredible to hear, because I was going to ask about hatching and kind of how you got involved in the project, and then where you started with designing the creature in the movie.
Well, we were very fortunate because Hanna did all her homework, and she assembled an amazing creature design team, obviously guided by her, to put her vision on paper. So basically, she approached me with these beautifully rendered designs of Ali that were all basically, we could just copy it. And we stuck very closely to the design, apart obviously from when you start building it. Little details start creeping in, like the plumage, what does it look like? It's gonna look like a bird, skin, the veining, the color of the eyes, but they're just filling in the original design, which we didn't stray from at all. Actually, I basically took the picture you sent me, blew it up into different sizes as size reference on paper. She picked the size she liked. We actually got my neighbor's daughter, she's 12 years old, to stand next to them, and she was like, yeah, that's the right proportion next to the girl. And off we went, and we took all our measurements, and we started to sculpt it. And obviously during the sculpting process, she would sort of emphasize, like, I want more of a anorexic type rib cage, where it's really fallen in and the skin is drooping on it. All these kind of details culminating into what you see on screen. So yeah, there's a long evolving process, during the whole build. It just evolves without straying too much from the original.
So I'm curious, what was the hardest part about designing Ali? When in the process, was there a detail that was specifically really difficult to get, or something like that? Because there's so many details in all of this work, so I'm always curious, how difficult is it to hit these details? That some people might not even see, you know what I mean? I feel like there's so many details that I want to just look at the actual sculpture and look at every little piece that you guys made.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing wasn't necessarily the details. I think the hardest thing personally for me was to see the project through from beginning to end.
Okay.
And this might sound a bit boring, but the hardest bit was the logistics and the finances, to stay on top of that. Okay. Because everybody that was involved, like the painter, for example, Henrik, who did all the creatures on Star Wars almost on his own, is an absolute genius. He paints at such a tremendous speed, it makes your head spin. The sculptor is fantastic. So that was a very easy process. It was just, the most hardest part was just keeping on top of it and making sure everything came out as Hanna expected it. I think the feathering was tricky because it's a plucked bird, and feathering work is very difficult to make it look convincing. So that was a bit of a back and forth. The girl who did it, we sat down a lot, tried things out. So what about if we add a bit of hair here, etc.? Let's blend this little tufts into the skin, stuff like that. That it's a very long process to get it right. The animatronics were relatively, don't want to brag, relatively straightforward. The hardest bit was probably to bring it to life and to actually get people on the actual puppet and become familiar with it and breathe life into it. That was definitely a very crucial part. But again, I had such good puppeteers. They took it in their stride, rehearsed, and nailed it pretty much every take. So no, it was a joy just to work with so many good people.
And with the puppeteers, so I'm just like now I'm like very obsessed with the idea of like the process. So are you there with Hanna while and like watching them puppet and helping direct how the puppeteers work it, or are you involved in that kind of direction of how they're moving the creature?
That was pretty much Hanna. Like
Okay,
she
okay.
she approached the puppet as if it was another actor. Uh,
So cool.
and the beauty of having a practical thing on set, like
Yeah.
like animatronic, and improvise. You can mark something. Oh, that was nice. Let's try that again, or let's try this with it. It's in not knocking CG at all, which is incredible, but say with a CG shot that is very predetermined, and there's a big bill slapped on it. They say, well, in this, can we try this? And I go, yeah, sure. That will cost you thousands and thousands. With the animatronic, you can actually try different things, and you can interact with somebody. They can emote, they can loosen up emotions in whoever is in front of it. So I'm going a bit of a tangent, isn't it?
No, I love it. It's so cool.
What's the question again? So I don't go too
Oh, it
far.
was just like how involved are you with like helping with
That's
the
it. That's it.
puppet
Okay.
movement?
Well, my involvement rate really on set was to keep the head alive. I puppeteered the facial expressions.
Oh, cool.
So it was quite easy. I could sit on a chair and just while the puppeteers were taking all the weight and putting all their efforts into making Ali come to life very beautifully. But that was my involvement, and I'd say we had a guy called Phil Woodvine, who's the puppeteer, the lead puppeteer, and he's sort of like the intermediate person between Hanna and the puppeteers. But Hanna would also just talk directly to the puppeteer team. It was not very departmentalized. It was a real team effort.
Yeah.
And she would speak directly even to somebody who was operating the arm, or a bit more, arm movement, or Gustav, a bit more head movement. So she was the captain that sort of, led the ship, and she really directed that puppet to how she imagined it to be. So.
How many puppeteers were there on the puppet?
Six.
Oh my God. Are you?
Yeah,
That's
there was
incredible.
one guy for a person on each individual arm, a person on the legs, and then there was me puppeteering the facial expressions, and Phil, who was also coordinating the puppeteers, would puppeteer the hands, the mechanical hands. So it takes a lot. And there was a girl called Nikki Belding who would do all the touch-ups between shots. Obviously you got to look after the cosmetics, and she would, like put a bit of slime on it, bit of paint where it sort of, wore a bit. So yeah, it was a team of 7 eventually, just for one puppet.
That's crazy. And then do you still have Ollie, the puppet?
I do. She's in my workshop still, covered up. So
Not watching you. I feel like that'd be just a lot of creepy puppet eyes. And my last question for you is, so you talked about like RoboCop and some of your favorites, but what is one or some of your favorite kind of creature effects that you've seen in the recent years that you've really been impressed by?
I think I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Spectral Motion. They did Hellboy 2.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of their work is just mind blowing. Just their body of work is phenomenal. I just admire, all my contemporaries, what they do. And if I would pick something that is fantastic, well, I thought Baby Yoda is very well executed. A very nice piece. God, what else? Too much to mention. It's really difficult.
I know.
But if I go back a bit, into the past, of course, Rob Bottin, who did RoboCop, did phenomenal things. Obviously, you want to know what I really like, what's done recently. God, you got me there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think Legacy Effects does beautiful things. That used to be Stan Winston who did Jurassic Park. It's
Oh,
always
cool.
outstanding, their work. Yeah, Conor O'Sullivan, a big admirer of his. He does beautiful prosthetics. A lot of my colleagues, because that is booming at the moment, is the makeup world. So appliances, and I am absolutely astounded at the level of realism that they can do now. You know, like the Winston Churchill makeup
Yes.
that was done by Kazuo, probably one of the greatest prosthetic artists ever. He's also an artist now and does very lifelike sculptures of you know, iconic people. He does incredible work. So it, for me, it very much also drifts to my contemporaries in the makeup effects business. You know, I'm really, because it's not what I do. I love watching it. I'm just
Awesome.
pretty much. Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the
You're
time.
welcome. You're welcome.
Hey,
Thank
this
you.
was so cool. Your work is so incredible. So it's cool to pick your brain about all this stuff. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.